Excellent, yeah. Excellent discussion. So we're coming into the break period, and we have this allow inter-RIR ASN transfers, which is potentially a large, long discussion. I don't know. Let me ask this. If people want to cut into their break a little bit or delay the break a little bit and keep going on policy, is that generally yes? Yes? Okay, let's try to get it done then. Scott Liburn, please come up. We'll handle draft policy ARIN-2014-15, allow inter-RIR ASN transfers.
I believe I just got permission to talk really fast and nobody's going to object.
There is a transcript person in the back. I don't see them, but I have sympathy on them wherever they are. Please
Okay, I want to
moderate your discussion.
So the question here is, well, the problem statement is, should we allow, this is a question I'm going to ask, should we allow ASN transfers between regions, between the ARIN region and other regions, to be compatible with a recently implemented AP-NIC policy? So the original proposal to do this was in 2013. That was presented before the community, didn't get any objections. A few people thought it was useful, but there were some sentiments that why are we bothering with this, because there's no other RIR that could do it. So what we ended up doing was abandoning that until AP-NIC adopted a policy that would allow them to receive ASNs or send them ARIN's way, and at which point this was reintroduced and reconsidered. But at the PPC in Bellevue, there were some RPKI concerns raised, and the staff addressed those in its staff assessment. And so that is the primary area that I want to get feedback from the community on. The draft policy text itself is pretty simple. Simply add ASNs to be transferred as one of the things that can be transferred under 8.4, and add some text at the bottom to make sure that getting an ASN transfer doesn't preclude you from getting V4 and vice versa. But in order to do this, we would require some additional work on the RPKI system in order to make the trust work when the delegation from IANA to an RIR needs to be replaced with the delegation from IANA to another RIR. That work has been done in IPv4. It has not been done for ASNs. So it would require some work on behalf of ARIN and also some coordination between RIRs along the lines of what they did, what was called ERX for IPv4. We discussed this at the PPC a couple days ago, and the ARIN staff said that this work could be done. It wasn't a tremendous amount of work, but it was work that is probably unnecessary unless this policy is desired by the community. So my question to the community is, are ASN transfers worth it? I have not yet heard anyone argue, either on the list at the PPC this week or otherwise, that ASN transfers are valuable enough for ARIN to do this work. So before we go into a lot of details about what the work is and rehashing the stuff that we talked about on Tuesday, I would like anyone who thinks that ASN transfers are necessary between regions. They're already allowed within the ARIN region. They're allowed within the AP-NIC region. If that's good enough, we can be done with this and abandon this policy and move on. If you think that we need ASN transfers between regions and it's worth the effort to have ARIN go do the RPKI thing, then I'd like to hear from you now. Otherwise, my intent is to propose that the AC abandon this policy at our meeting tomorrow. John?
Just one little comment. You keep saying ARIN do the work. Since this is inter-RIR, you're actually saying ARIN engage with the other 4 IRs to get all of us to do the work. Just clarity.
Thank you. So that's the discussion point I'd like to start with. Hopefully, if there's consensus that this is not worthwhile, we can skip the whole rehashing of what work is required and go to break. So first off, does anybody think this is actually worth doing and want to speak in favor of this proposal?
If you think this is a good proposal, please get to a microphone now.
Who's first?
Front mic.
In view of
Name?
Name and
Sorry.
affiliation?
Adam Thompson, again, Manitoba Internet Exchange. In view of the fact that the gradual globalization and interchangeability of number resources between RIRs seems to be somewhat inevitable, putting the policy language into the NRPM now seems fairly sound. Whether we actually need to support it in our PKI at all at this time, I doubt, particularly if we believe Jeff Houston's analysis of where our PKI is headed. I don't see a problem with saying, yeah, you can transfer your AS numbers between RIRs, but sorry, your SOL when it comes to our PKI for now.
Thank you.
Rüdiger Volk, Deutsche Telekom. Well, if any transfers can be done, all types of resources can be transferred. There may be minor technical differences, but there is, I cannot see any reason why any particulars, and in particular the AS numbers, would be more difficult. It's just settling that. And well, okay, for the RPKI side, actually the RIRs have been asked by the CIDR working group for quite a long time to come up and explain how the transfers should be done. And that request, as far as I can see, hasn't been resolved. And well, okay, it actually needs to be resolved.
Thank you. Front mic.
Matt Petak, Yahoo. I'll admit I'm a little confused and would like some clarification. When you talk about transfers from RIR to RIR, does this mean from organization A in RIR1 to a different organization, or does this mean as Yahoo I could take an ARIN AS number, transfer it under a PNIC to be under their rules, but keep it within my company?
I believe those two are the same thing because you would transfer it to Yahoo Japan or to some other
No, it would still
entity.
be Yahoo org as the parent company. We
So-
work in many countries.
So literally, it is the transfer from the from an organization. It is not the transfer necessarily between organizations. It's the transfer from the administration of one RIR to an administration of another RIR.
Thank you. That was the clarification I needed.
Jason?
Jason Schiller, Google. I forget who said the comment now. Rudiger. Rudiger was at the mic and asked a very good question, which is, why is dealing with transfers of ASNs more difficult and different than dealing with the transfers of IP addresses? I'd like to hear an answer to that question. Jeff Houston, can you come to the mic? Because I think you can answer it a lot better than I can.
Jeff Houston, APNIC. I can give you a very quick description of why particularly the 2-byte AS numbers are treated differently within the entire registry system than 4-byte AS numbers, no, those larger ones, V4 and V6. In all of the other IANA-run registries, the IANA contents, the contents they put there, are actually a listing of delegations to RIRs as they happened. So if transfers move between registries, it's a registry-to-registry issue, and that we track that within the corresponding RIRs. That's why the V4 registry only has basically 256/8 entries. It's what IANA did. At some point in the indeterminate past, I suspect about 8 years ago, the registry services managers and folk from IANA sat down, looked at the AS number registry, and decided they would inflate the 2-byte AS number registry and include the particular listings of every individual AS number and where it went. So now when we do inter-RIR transfers in that 2-byte AS number registry, to tell you the truth, we're really confused as to what should happen. Did we unwittingly create a precedent? So now every single 2-byte AS number now needs to go up to IANA, change the registry, break things apart, drop it down. And then the meta question, what's so special about that registry that we have to do this, but we're not doing it in any of the others. And is this pain worth the effort? Do we really want to open up that box? Because this is going to be a lot of work to try and resolve. There's no reason to keep that 2-byte AS number registry different, but normalising it is as much pain as not. So this policy proposal opens that box up, which is why it's kind of, if you're really serious about this, the pain will be incurred, no doubt. But if you're just doing it for uniformity, you're opening up something that is, you know, of large cost but little benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Owen, I think you're next.
Owen DeLong, Black Lotus Communications. Renumbering IP addresses is hard. Renumbering AS numbers, really not so much. So I've done it. I've done it at fairly large providers. It's really, it's painful, but it's not nearly as bad as renumbering a few hundred customers for their IPv4 addresses. So I personally don't see a lot of need for ASN transfers in general, and even less need for moving ASNs from one region to another, whether within the same organization or across organizations. I don't see those as being particularly different from an RIR perspective, because it may be Yahoo, the same company in North America and in Japan, but it's not Yahoo, the ARIN organization ID in Japan. It's Yahoo, the APNIC organization ID in Japan, and the ARIN organization ID in ARIN. And you know, they're two different organizations from an RIR perspective. So I personally don't support the policy. I think it's way too much work for way too little benefit.
Thank you. Heather?
Heather Schiller, Google Fiber. Someone yelled squirrel, and we all looked. Exactly. If the community, the real question is, do you want to be able to transfer ASNs between RIRs? If we do, the RIR staff will figure out how to make it happen. RPKI or not, it can be figured out. It is not a technical impossibility. It might be work. They might say, you can transfer your ASN, but you're not going to get this RPKI thing on it until we finish some work. The really important question, do you want to be able to transfer ASNs between RIRs? And I'm not hearing enough from the community about whether they want it. And I personally agree with Owen. It's not, to me, there's plenty of ASNs. It's not a lot of, there's not a lot of benefit for it, but I'm not stuck around the RPKI piece.
Yeah, it's a is this worth it question to me. David?
All right, David Huber from Microsoft. I want to put some operational reality in here.
David, pause. I am closing the microphones very shortly. Approach the mics if you wish to speak to this.
So Matt, I want to answer your question from a reality side. Microsoft received a block of AS numbers from the Inter-RIR. Our Chinese equipment, Beijing. No, this is operation. This is real. Okay, it's innocent. It's innocent. We use those AS numbers in our network, and Beijing is on AS 8072, which is here. There are now regulations by the Chinese government, China Telecom and China Unicom, the main transit providers, are no longer allowing us to originate routes from AS 8072. They're about to pull that from us unless AS 8072 is registered in CNNIC. ARIN policy forbids us from moving this. Now, 2 days ago when we talked about this at the PPC, I got up at the mic and said, look, it may be painful, but Microsoft is willing to just eat the operational cost of renumbering the AS to a CNNIC AS if it's really that difficult. After talking, however, to the engineers, they're really not happy with that answer. So there's a real operational reality for multi-continent networks.
I have to ask, David, in light of that operational reality, are you saying that this is the type of thing that should be advanced?
So, I mean, Heather's argument kind of resonates with me. I don't like hearing from the RIR staffs, these very intelligent folks, this is really hard and we don't know if we want to do this. It's a creation that happened when somebody got to the IANA and wanted stuff fixed, and now there's a cost to that, and you know, this is something that's solvable and probably should be solved. You'll fix the meta problem if you solve it too.
I just want to be clear, have no view of whether we want to or don't want to do this. Just want to identify large chunk of work.
Well, the staff has made it pretty clear they don't want to do it, and by staff
We
I'm talking.
love doing work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to be clear. You folks need to know you want us to do it. That's it.
Thank you. I think Mike was next.
Mike Joseph, Google. I want to respond to two points. To Owen's point, I've done AS renumbering for large ISPs, and it is actually quite onerous. You're not talking about renumbering or changing your ASs on your period in transit. That part's the easy part. It's getting all of your customers to change their remote BGP sessions, and when you are a large NSP, that's quite a large obligation. That said, I'm not sure I see why transferring ASs would preclude a AS renumbering. In fact, one would argue it would cause one. Although I disagree with Owen, I'm not sure that that has much implication on this policy. I would ask, however, Jeff stood up a few minutes ago and helpfully clarified the implications for the IANA. And then he admonished us to consider why bother implementing this policy. Yet I point out that one of the justifications for this policy is that APNIC did it. So I'd like to understand, perhaps Jeff could comment on why APNIC thinks this is a good idea.
I think I can say that Jeff doesn't speak for APNIC, but if he if he wants to give himself another defense, he's welcome to. I've heard that from Jeff a number of times, that he can't speak for the APNIC
Jeff,
community.
do you want to
so-
approach the microphone or not? You're totally your choice.
I tried.
I don't think, Jeff Houston, I don't think I admonished anyone saying we didn't want to do it. I'm like, as John says, we're here to do the stuff and that's fine. I simply pointed out that in that particular registry, it's different to all the others, and it's going to require a fair deal of concentrated effort to understand how to do it. That's okay. My second comment was, if you want to go there, that's fine. If you're just doing this for reasons that you don't want to go there, it's just completeness, understand that associated with that is this larger effort of trying to understand what's going on in the IANA part of that registry and what are we going to do about it. Because at the moment, it's managed subtly differently from all the others. I don't know how we got there, but that's where we are. Is that clear?
I think on those points, yes. Thank you.
All right, I am closing the mics. Approach the mics. Last chance. 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Microphone queues are closed. Those in the mics continue. Those in the queues continue.
That's you, Marty.
Martin, excuse me. Martin Hannigan, Akamai Technologies, and I do support this proposal, yada, yada, yada. I'd like to echo David's commentary operationally. I have similar problems with CNIC. I also have problems with German privacy law and other things that require registries to actually be registries. So if I'm going to originate routes in Europe using ASNs that I may have or may not have from ARIN exclusively, I do have some requirements that somehow I need to indicate that ASN is being utilized in the region and regional contact information for law enforcement and government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Burns, IP Trading. I'm the policy author, the proposal author. I'd like to thank the Shepherd for immediately moving for abandonment. But, you know,
It's the only way I've ever gotten a response so far. It worked.
I have to confess that I did issue the proposal as a feeling of comedy with the comity with a T with the APNIC registry. You know, we had gone and discussed this proposal, as you mentioned earlier, and then we found that we had no other suitors, and then here comes APNIC, and you know, they do a reciprocal policy, and now they don't have a suitor. So I thought it would be nice for us, you know, to do that. Now, having heard some of the technical issues And also, for the first time, some of the operational demands or requirements for transferring interregionally AS numbers. I have to say I still support it. I think that the artifact of the IANA registry of the 2-byte ASNs is something that should be fixed. So I support the policy.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, this is the last speaker. I think he knows who he is.
Jason Schiller, Google.
He does.
And the ASOAC. Regardless of this policy, whether it passes or not, whether it's good or bad, if we decided for some reason that we wanted to change how the IANA operates with respect to 2-byte ASNs and how they're recorded and how that delegation works, how would we go about fixing that? Because it feels to me like a global policy proposal to change that is sort of like me putting in an ARIN policy proposal to change fees. We don't make policy about operational practices of ARIN, so how do we tell IANA if they have an operational practice that is bad, that it should be changed?
If this is adopted, we will engage with the IANA and do so.
So we don't need global policy to do that?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
This is a implementation feature that will get worked if necessary, but otherwise it will get ignored. It doesn't pose any issue otherwise, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question for John and John. Would it be appropriate to get a feel for the room as to whether we should move this forward or not, or do you think we've got enough feedback? I've heard a lot of comments. I don't have a sense of what all the people sitting down think, so I would like a show of hands on whether we should move this forward or abandon. Okay, so I'm going to ask Vint to ask the room before or after I sit down whether we should abandon this proposal or not.
So just for the record, you want that precise question answered, do we abandon or not? Is that correct? Okay, all right. So you've heard the proposition. All those who think we should abandon and not continue working on this particular proposal should raise your hands now and keep them up.
Raise your hands
Way
high.
Way up high. I know
Nice
some
and
people,
high.
I see people resting their elbows. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. Thank you. This shouldn't be too hard. Oh, I'm seeing hands popping up in the front here. So this is, remember, you're voting in favor of abandoning further work on this proposal. All right, we have the count. Thank you. All those who are against abandoning and others who wish to continue working on the proposal, please put your hands up and keep them up. Again, you're voting in favor of continuing to work on this proposal. I see 2 hands up. I'm sorry, put that hand down. Very funny, haha. It's a good thing we're not under some laws that cause you to lose limbs. Hands up, please. We have the count.
We have that, and they're coming back now.
Okay, thank you. I have a stupid question while we're at it, waiting for this to come back. Is this transfer notion exclusive, or do you end up having the same ASN registered in 2 places? Because the CN-NIC demand sounded almost as if you were going to originate routing information in 2 different regions.
Registry
It need to be
entries.
registered in both places.
Registry entries are administered by a single RIR unless we change major aspects of our architecture.
So that's quite a demand being made by CN-NIC.
It is requiring that a given resource be administered by a particular RIR is a fairly onerous demand.
Especially considering the architecture permits pieces of network to be anywhere in the world. Thank you very much. Okay, so with 165 in the room, 8 remote, 173 total, do we abandon? 13 are in favor and 23 are against abandoning, so we will continue this discussion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.